The LCS Challengers League is brought to you by Turo, the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. Find your drive. Welcome back, everyone, to LCS Challengers League. Our first series between Team Fish Taco and EGC has just been concluded. And, I mean, after that interview, seeing that confidence that Onat has and that he just straight up man mode gives an aura of, it really doesn't surprise me that much now in retrospect that you got a 2-0, right,
interviews are absolutely goated. I love the confidence he has. It's like, I don't want to BM, but, you know, we're going to 2-0, and we're going to 2-0 after that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, too. He comes in and he's like, yeah, I don't know. It didn't even feel like that much of a competition, right? He's building a Magi just to BM them at this point. It's just, it's just such a dominant performance coming out from Team Fish Taco that say that they're underrated. I mean, we're starting to get a couple more believers as the season continues to go on.
All right, well, on to our next series now. It's going to be Team Liquid Challengers versus Wildcard. Let's pull up the roster, starting with Team Liquid Challengers. Now, this is the sophomore split of this particular squad, and so far it's been phenomenal with such performances and a relatively relaxed strength of schedule. They seem bound to go into the second half in first place, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, they were the first team to cross the double-digit barrier of wins, and in particular, I mean, having just watched a Team Fish Taco game, these guys have been basically flawless so far in terms of their split, except for their last series going up against Team Fish Taco. So I'm hoping we can see a return to cleanliness coming through, and especially the dominance of the mid-jungle.
And the next team we have is Wildcard. They'll be running the gauntlet this final week. Fear and Fly wait in the horizon. But it all starts with Team Liquid. Here's the thing, Alex. If anyone could pull it off, I think Wildcard do have the capability.
That's why, like, Josh is like, man, they've been flawless, except for that one series. Then it's like, but what about this series? It's Wildcard, the team that we've seen upset the bracket many times.
I definitely look at Wildcard versus Team Liquid, and I said that Wildcard have the best setups around a lot of objectives. Now, Wildcard definitely have the best static setups. They are by far the best, but in terms of fluid setups, that's actually where Team Liquid starts to come in, right? It's part of their name. They've been so good at interrupting other setups that teams have been going for, and if Wildcard can adapt to that, they can definitely challenge the top of the table.
Now, I want to put a spotlight to the top lane matchup because these are two players who feel, somewhat different from the way they approach the top lane. On one side, you have the Order, the Law, that is Bradley of Team Liquid.
Hold on, Eric. You didn't. No, there's no way you just said Bradley's Order. Have you sure, maybe Champion Pool, kind of samey, kind of boring, but this guy does not play the same. He is always aggressive. Every single time we watch this guy, he is looking for the 1v1, the 2v2 outplays. He is trying to play aggressively right out of the get-go. This guy embodies chaos when it comes to how he plays out lane states and how he looks for team fights.
Okay. My bad, Alex. Didn't need to interrupt me like that. Apparently I had my narrative backwards. Fine.
How dare you?
Fine.
How dare you?
I'll fix it, all right? Okay. We have the Order, the Law of Zamudo of Wildcard. He's...
Eric, I think you had it right the first time coming through. You were saying that Bradley was chaos. You take a look at Zamudo and see what he does. Even though he's played so many games of Gragas, the way he plays it is chaotic at its finest. He goes for some crazy flanks. He makes sure that he can come in from an angle that nobody is ever expecting. And of course, you're not going to see Bradley play the Akshan or the Karthus coming through. This guy is coming through with all kinds of different picks as well. He's chaos all over. You move Bradley right on over to the other side of the alignment chart.
Wait. Which is it then? Who's Order? Who's chaos? If we're going to have this disagreement, I think this calls for a debate, lads. Alex, you have the trip, so sell it to me. Why is Bradley the chaos and Zamudo the Order?
I think it's only appropriate to look at the clips when we do this, because that's really going to show you. It's hard to just quantify him in a case of he plays aggressively. He's playing things like the Kazante, and he's looking for outplays against Jax. That's Lunasia's Jax as well. This guy will look for this. And keep in mind, he was behind in this matchup at first. He got ganked early on into the game, was able to carve out leads by himself, and then get a solo kill onto Lunasia. APA is there just purely as a formality, a little cheerleader for him. And this is something that we just see from Bradley, on how he likes to play a lot of these things, and the angles he likes to look for in a lot of plays. I love that. The Kasase, the pull out of Zeri here. He sees a big blast going. He's Kennen. He's like, hell yeah, let's go right into the back line. I'm totally down for this. That is why I look at Bradley as this player that is chaos. He is all about how can he disrupt the backline? How can he make it so that his opponent can't really theorize how to play against him.
You know what? Good point. Good point. You got me somewhat sold, but I got to give Josh a chance as well. On the other side, Zamudo. What's going on here, Josh?
I mean, at the end of the day, Bradley, all these big flinks he's going for are by the book, right? It's the classic thing you would expect the top laners to go for. Zamudo, he is rewriting the book. He's starting at the very top, and we can see the way that he likes to play a lot of these fights. He will play so far forward compared to everybody else in everything that he does. And he's also willing to do it. He will go for more 1v1s against people that aren't the top lane than just about anybody else in the league. He tries to make everything happen, and you can get to see exactly what happens when he plays all kinds of different characters. It's not as though he's playing everything that's top of the meta. Yeah, he's got a lot of Gragas games, but he has so many unique one-of champions that nobody has been able to go for. And while Zamudo has been playing a lot of these characters in some of these setups, the other thing that makes him so unique is his willingness to walk up behind all kinds of different team fights. And I think we can all remember what happens when you give him something a little bit more crazy. Again, you're not going to be getting Bradley playing the Akshan in the near future at all. It's all going to be Zamudo rezzing 3 people over the course of this fight.
This makes it a tough debate for me now, because now I'm not sure who's the order and who's the law. I mean, you know what? I'm a little bit more sold.
He's just getting champions. He's just getting champions. He's pulling that out. Keep in mind, the last time we saw Bradley when he was the 2 chains from last year, he had the most unique champions that he played any top laner, of any player that we saw all year long. This guy's got champions. He's got a champion Ocean.
They were all top laners, okay?
Not all of them. Not all of them. And this is also a guy who roll swapped from mid up into top lane, so he also played some crazy things there.
All right, when we start seeing Bradley playing things like the Akshan and the Karthus, then we'll talk.
You know what? I don't want to talk anymore. This has just fumbled my brain and made it a complete mess. I'd rather just see it on the Rift and decide after the game. So, Mad Magical, why don't you do me a favor and take us away?
All right, we'll take you away to a secret place. That is going to be Champion Select, getting into game number 1 between Team Liquid Challengers and Wildcard. And no surprise to see Wildcard on this red side. It feels like they are the team that truly prioritizes red over all other teams.
Yeah, and it's also a team that really relies on having a lot of counter pick coming out through it. That's part of why Zamudo's giant champion pool is so valuable and why you love seeing these guys come through. But now that they are on red side, this is currently 2 of the teams that have been looking the best so far throughout summer. Team Liquid have only dropped 2 games thus far. One of them going up to Team Fish Taco, and even in that series, they fell really far behind, even in Game 1, and were able to scrap their way back. But Wildcard is a team that, you know, just like a boa constrictor, once they actually get the first part down, once they build that lead, it is so difficult to play against them because of how Zamudo and the rest of the team will suffocate the rest of the team out.
It's interesting to see some of these bans right now. The Maokai levied towards Keel. Not too surprised, same with the Kindred, but that Xayah taken away from Lens. The safety that it's kind of provided Wildcard this split, especially because we've seen that Keel really has kind of gone with Donbre and Soligo on how they want to dive into the backline, kind of leave Lens on an island. Their Team Liquid Challengers have kind of read that and say, all right, Lens, you're not going to have that safety now in this backline. You're not going to have the reliable tool to peel for yourself. You are going to have someone defend you.
Yeah, and it's definitely been one of the only points of criticism I've really had towards watching Wildcard is it feels as though Lens has not yet stepped in. And he was talking about it in his interview last week, where it doesn't feel as though they've been ready to go for it. But this was a champion that also in the interview last week, we heard Keel talking about how much he wanted to play this.
And they got the rel with it too. We honestly, seeing that both of them are enabled, it really feels that Ivern kind of fits this role that Keel likes to play.
Oh, yeah.
Because he plays some very unique champions. The Nunu is the one that really kind of sticks out in my mind. But this really does work out with trying to build up Lens, Zamudo, Soligo, and having a rel for Donbre as well to be your engage alongside that Daisy. I think this is a great 2 pickup for Wildcard.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is already starting to look like the 2 teams are going basically party lions, right? How do you like to win your games? Wildcard, even though they've got a couple new players in, are still here to go for a scaling style of gameplay. Whereas for Team Liquid Challengers, they love playing very, very heavily around the early and the mid game. They believe that is how they become better as players, by putting the onus of execution on themselves. They don't mind dropping games as long as they are trying to make their game plan happen. And now Wildcard, they have the tools to stifle a lot of the things that Team Liquid is trying to do.
I was just talking about that Zaya, how it was banned away to kind of get rid of some of that safety for Lens. He can't be in a backline and self-heal for himself. Well, he doesn't need to, because he's going to be diving with them as well. He's going to be right in the thick of all the battles.
Well, it could be played mid lane. We actually have been seeing it pop up quite a bit, especially with the static shift. Now, it is very likely to go over to Lens. This was something where we have seen them play very aggressively in the past, but it also is a bit of a surprise to me, right? You've already picked up the Ivern, and Ivern does two things. One, he allows some characters to play a lot farther forward than they're supposed to, and two, he makes characters that are trying to play back impossible to kill. And now Wildcard, they're putting a lot of bans here towards the mid lane as well, trying to make sure that APA is going to be on something a little bit less comfortable. And interestingly enough, as the Malphite does get banned, it was something that Zamudo was actually the top damage on for his team last week.
Yeah, I was about to say, Malphite it also feels like has kind of cropped up into this meta where has been that surprise factor. Though, the big drawback to me is whenever I see Silas is left open, I'm like, all right, well, you just go for the handshake at that point. But grabbing this Jace here could be Zamudo, more likely going to be for Soligo here in mid lane, and APA hovering that Corki. The Cassiopeia, that is his classic, El Clasico, here in the mid lane, whenever they need to fall back onto something, especially as that Twisted Fate. When I talked to APA, this Twisted Fate pick was kind of that big pickup that they were really relying on before Static Shiv as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it got really good with the Static Shiv too, but looking at the composition that Team Liquid have drafted for themselves, they are going to have to deal with a ton of issues in range the later this game actually goes, right?
Mudo just slam Olaf here?
He could. I mean, the big thing is it's really tough to play the Jace into the Scion, but I feel like Olaf doesn't really fit the composition that Wildcard already drafted for themselves, right? You already have, as we saw in some of Maryville's wins, a ton of extra range to play against him. Okay. Interesting. Wildcard have committed to a spot where their team fights are going to be a lot harder to navigate than Team Liquid's, but they have a ton of pressure in the side lanes that is not going to be easily matched by what it is that Team Liquid Challengers is going to be bringing. Bradley will struggle up against Jason Fiora on 2-3 items in the side lane. It's going to be so much more difficult for Team Liquid to create pressure there. They're going to have to be the ones trying to engage fights.
Yes, and that's going to be the big thing. Them engaging these fights, and with the Cassiopeia, that's kind of almost counterintuitive because you're the one trying to get the fights baited into you so you could throw it back at that point. But I do agree with most of the draft that you have a Scion, you got Vi, you got Melio, you have tools to engage these fights pretty well, and then also kind of kite back fights if you have to. Well, Wildcard, it almost feels like they got one note. That is, they get to late game and they skirmish and they fight and they don't stop.
This is a composition for Wildcard that as long as it is ahead, it's winning. And, you know, that sounds like the least interesting analysis you've ever done. But the same idea is that if this composition is ahead, it's so difficult for Team Liquid to actually start fights against them. They have to find perfect engages. But as soon as Wildcard fall behind and Team Liquid are able to just start things by sending Mir like a Pokemon, just saying, I choose you, go get Lens, it is so much more difficult for Wildcard to recover from those kind of positions. So, Wildcard looking to scale. They've got a lot of range tools to play up against, but they need to withstand the incredible pressure that Team Liquid Challengers has put on every team so far.
But if one team can do it, Wildcard have been that team. Even in the past, if you think back to spring, Wildcard did 2-0 with Team Liquid Challengers in one of the early big upsets of the season. That kind of shocked a lot of people, including ourselves. We had tagged Team Liquid Challengers as being that top dog, having been the two chains, even if it's only Bradley being the one player from the 2022 season. They're still a very strong team, and they are proving that here in summer, why we expected such great things of them.
As they continue to try and build that up, we are seeing some invades and counter invades for Vision coming through from both sides, right? Zamudo gets the ward down onto the blue buff here for Mir. Mir's also been a player, well, not going for the same number of invades as something like Rosethorn has. Mir will go for a lot of skirmishes, particularly around the Scuttle Crabs, and looking for relatively early ganks. He was one of the foremost 3-camp into bot lane players like we saw in spring, and now Team Liquid, you have to try and track Keel, who's been playing the Ivern and is definitely the kind of player who will have the path super optimized.
I'm just kind of keeping my eyes on his pathing at the moment. Very well done so far. It has been mostly spotted out by a ward placed down by APA, but doesn't really deter Keel. He's going to take everything, do exactly what we expect, go for an easy invade there onto the red, goes back, everything is already getting cooked in the oven, and it's easy baked for Keel.
Yeah, I mean, good stuff for Keel. He was one of the players who was talking initially, even before we hit this patch, like, hey, what are you looking forward to about 13-12? I was like, well, I really want to play Ivern. I really love playing this champion. I really love playing things that people don't really expect or necessarily know how to adjust to. And already cleaning out the top side of the map, they are seeing Mirror on the bottom side now, and this is a fantastic read coming out from Wildcard in terms of their early pathing.
As expected. Really do expect that from Keel. Kind of ahead on the meta in many regards when we look at how he plays a lot of things. That's why I always like to talk about his Nunu. I'm waiting for him to pull that out because I still think it's a good champion. I think it's underrated.
Keel disagrees, that's the problem.
I know he does now. It's not as good as it was, right?
True.
It's very dependent on the meta and on your opponent's champions. But I still think, like, in the right comps, it is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. The other thing I kind of want to set up this game is in spring we're looking at Bradley to kind of be the guy up in top lane, right? To really take over the league and be something like what Tenacity had been previously. That didn't happen in spring, right? Bradley had an okay spring. But so far, he's starting to look a little bit more like the guy, except it's so much harder to do that in this matchup, right? Playing the Scion into the Fiora, it's actually a better lane matchup than a lot of people think. It just gets impossible to play if you don't build up that lead early on. And Bradley, I mean, his wave is in a really tough spot. Zamudo has been definitely looking like the guy so far in summer.
Zamudo is getting the better edge of this currently, even calling in Keel. This is a typical wildcard play as well, back when they had Moose Hater on the team. Feels like the playbook hasn't changed at all. Send Keel top side early. This one will be spotted out. Bradley having a nice ward there. Sees a couple unwarranted brushes. He's like, hey, wait a minute, where'd those come from?
You have to be looking at that, though. It doesn't always show up on the mini-map, and so this looks like
he was definitely looking at those. Those were very obvious ones.
But I mean, as a top laner, that's not where your camera is. Your camera is on the lane, right? That's the big difference.
That is fair.
And so now, as Bradley does start to get this one pushed in, he's got a spot where he is crashing a big wave, but Zamudo should be up about, half a dozen CS after this wave. Bradley not able to abuse some of the mind games around the Q and the riposte coming out from Zamudo. And so Zamudo doing a great job early on in this lane.
Yeah, he'll be the benefactor of that is Bradley with an early port back to base. Bramble Vest in the inventory to make this lane just a little bit more difficult for Zamudo. Not really stops the lane, but bot lane really difficult as Arrow gets exploded by Lens, and Dawnbray underneath the turret. Doesn't matter, it's first blood for Lens. It is traded back, but you'll take that for Wildcard.
That is huge. A massive wave being denied here to Arrow. One of the things that we've consistently praised about Arrow is his ability to lane, especially with newer supports like him down. But the things that make him a good laner also make him vulnerable to these all-ins. He will contest every minion, and this time Wildcard says, you actually can't contest that one, and we will take you down almost instantly. Trying to go up, trying to threaten Lens for some of these auto attacks. Dawnbray is just in a perfect position, and the amount of damage coming through instantly from Wildcard just means that he goes down super, super quickly. He does get the root on the backside, and if Kim Down had waited to see if the turret had killed him, it might have been okay if Arrow had actually gotten that kill.
Yeah, it could have been like the saving grace so that you're not falling too far behind. But it's still not great because how, like you talked about, that was a massive minion wave that was stacked there by Lens and Dawnbray. So they crashed that into the turret. You get a plate for Lens as well. He already had the electric carrot in his inventory that you called out before. The lightning carrot, whatever. Yeah. The electric lightning, same thing. Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's already in a fantastic position, building towards the static shiv, and Team Liquid, they're going to be the ones starting up the Dragon, but Wildcard starting to move in force towards the bottom half of the map. Now, the playbook of Team Liquid in previous splits was always moving up their support to try and contest the Rift Herald in about a minute and a half. As they pick up the first Dragon for themselves, they put themselves in a spot where they can get those resets off. But Heal has been living in the top half of the map
Yes,
this entire time.
He's just been in the jungle of Mir and be like, all right, everything is belong to me. I'll take that. I'll take that. He's window shopping at this point. It's like that. All this, I want all that.
Yep. And look at that. It is going to be Arrow and Kim Down moving towards the top half of the map, right as we start looking towards the Rift Herald. And Bradley has a teleport to move to the other side of the Rift in order to pick up the minions, but also has the ultimate if they want to try and make a fight happen here. And oh, is he kill now?
See him now. They now have to flash away. Keel realizing he's in a bad spot, grabbing him as well to lock him down. Choo-choo train picks up the kill.
Ooh, that one's going to be going over to Bradley, though. I'm not sure that's the target that they wanted. They will send him down towards the bottom half, but that's another kill. Missing out on Arrow, on the champion that he has had some of the biggest highlights for this roster coming out in summer. Now Team Liquid, they're putting Zamudo in a really rough position, already down to half HP, not strong enough to go for the 1v2. With the soccer ball, can't even get on top of Kim Down. This looks like it's going to be a fantastic shift coming out from Team Liquid to pick up the Rift Herald.
Yeah, they're keeping Zamudo pinned in the top lane. And this is a classic Team Liquid play, right? This is one thing we always praise them for last year to this year with Coach Spawn. Is their macro has been one of the best of all challengers teams that we have ever seen. And it's consistent regardless of who's on the roster.
The counter rotate coming through. Team Liquid are going to be sending Bradley towards the middle of the map. He's got no ultimate, and Daisy doing plenty of work saying he didn't want any pickles.
No, it is going to be a bit of a fight there. I know exactly the meme you're talking about right there, Josh. It is a good one. It's a good one, but right now, it is going to be a bit of a skirmish. It is a rumble around the Rift Herald. We don't often see this 8.5 minutes into the game.
Wow.
We have nobody with the lead. But there is going to be quite the rumble here. A little bit of poke the flash in. Donbre is looking for Mir, who's locked in the pit, but it's going to be the push back onto the horse, the dash in, the kill, a traded back support for jungler. But look at Zamudo. Nice riposte.
With
the
a
knock
knockup.
into the air. Bradley makes sure that he can't get out of there. And it's going to be APA sinking the claws and the fangs into the Fiora.
Ooh, and Team Liquid, it looks like they're going to be the ones walking away with the Rift Herald, even though it was their jungler who went down. Team Liquid scrapping their way through. That was a chaotic fight as well. Trying to figure out who you're supposed to be hitting during that fight is so difficult to do, right? Are you going to be trying to deal with Dombre as he comes in? Are you going to try and dive onto Lens? People didn't know. And finally, they decided to pull the trigger onto Dombre, take him down before they were able to do anything. But Mir not even getting the ultimate to land, just chasing after the last horse, not enough. The big thing that we end up seeing, though, is Team Liquid, they have all of their members at full HP. They have enough mana to go for the rest of the fight. Saligo never able to jump in.
There's also Zamudo. It was a nice riposte onto the petrifying gaze of APA. Then Bradley's like, oh,
that's my turn.
You can't riposte this now, can you, buddy?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I actually love about playing Sion into the Fiora, right? Is that it's so hard to use the riposte up against the Decimating Smash. Because, you know, if you do it too early, then you just get knocked up. If you do it too late, Sion just gets free damage down, and it's so hard because once you release the Q button, you're going to get it going off no matter what. But Wildcard find themselves in a very small deficit. They've given up both neutral objectives, and with another dragon coming up very shortly, it feels as though Team Liquid really want to abuse some of the power that they have in their composition, while Mir is the one with the biggest go button in the game.
Moving around the map consistently, into the bot lane back, since that's where the play is going to be next. Go to Keel, Mir. Kind of punching each other. More of a punch there from Saligo than anything else.
Yeah. Haha, got Daisy. Smited them down. And that's actually a really big cooldown.
Yeah, Daisy being the
Yeah, the Daisy.
one.
The Daisy.
I thought you were about to say Smite. I'm like, Smite should be a backup. It's 40 seconds still left until that dragon's up. You got plenty of time there if you're Mir. So, Team Liquid getting a lot of advantages there into that bot lane. And even look at the fight for vision control. Quite the war is going on in that bot river.
Yeah. And as we start looking at it again, right, like Team Liquid, Mir's coming down, has the ultimate. And they're going to be trying to push Lens off the wave to allow Team Liquid to control the river first. Zamudo does have the teleport. It's not as though the Fiora in the fight is always going to be the most impactful thing. Team Liquid, though, trying to figure out exactly how they can move their pieces around.
Bradley,
There's
though.
middle priority in every lane.
Bradley getting a good trade there onto Zamudo. So even if you have that TPS Fiora, now you don't want to use it. you're down below 50%. You're going to TP in and die immediately upon arrival. So this gives Team Liquid the ample opportunity on to the neutral objective. And you can tell that Wildcard, they've already sent members back to base. They're forfeiting control. It's only the second dragon. It's not really worth giving your life for ire.
With no Daisy up, Wildcard don't have a true frontline, right? Dombre is kind of like this secondary front. He's on support budget. He doesn't have the most money to play with. He's not actually all that tanky. Team Liquid are going to be the ones walking away with a second dragon for themselves this time around. And so far, the big question is going to be, right, Jace on one item is pretty neat. Jace on 2 items is nowhere near as neat as Cassiopeia is on 2 items. So Team Liquid, as they will scale into this, they are really going to have to make all of these plays around the next couple of objectives before Wildcard can really abuse the extra range advantage that they have.
Dombre going back for that vision battle in the bot lane, but the war is over already. It's a battle that's fruitless because there's no objective to fight over. You're purely doing that to get control of the bot lane. Well, look at what Team Liquid are doing. Already rotating again, sending Arrow and Kim down back into the top lane. Possibly even looking to drop that Rift Herald since it is in the inventory of Arrow.
Yeah, and as they drop it, this is going to be probably the entire turret going down. Lens will be nowhere near as fast in terms of their ability to take down the structure. They are alone, but look at how much damage is going to be done by the rest of Team Liquid. They are going to be sending Bradley down, likely to teleport to the bottom lane. Keep it safe.
Sending the TP top lane from Zamudo to deny that turret from being taken, and Bradley doing in kind in the bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, neither structure is going to be going down, but they get an extra plate here for Arrow at the cost of his summoner spells. And so Wildcard actually do a really good job neutralizing any of that play, but it's still going to be the Sion off in a side lane and the Fiora off in a side lane. But this time they're being joined by Dombre. This 2v2 is one that they are very equipped to win.
Don't realize that Kim down's there as well. And Dombre, the back canceled. There's a little bit more freedom in the spot lane to Bradley to push in another minion wave, maybe even deny Lens from backing and recalling. Yep, does exactly that.
Yeah. I'm really worried, though, as a Team Liquid fan here, Alex. I don't think their lead is large enough.
Okay.
Right? We were talking about how the range advantage coming through from Sligo and Lens.
Lead?
Well, that's the thing, right? They have 2 dragons. You know, it's not 0. It's just not enough. Right, that's going to be the big question, is can they find some of these fights? If there's any team that's going to be able to do it, I still think it's going to be Team Liquid. They've showcased so much fluidity in their willingness to go for these team fights. It actually looked a lot closer to something like you see in the LPL than a lot of other teams in the Challengers League. But, like Wildcard, they can just decline to fight, right? They can just say, no, I don't want to. I'm going to shoot you from all the way over here.
Yeah, pew pew. You got a lot of poke, especially because Len's going for that AP variant build that we've been seeing. That's why you talked about the Kai'Sa possibly mid lane, just because you do a lot of damage with all those W's. Each time they land, you get the reset as well, 50%. You can continue to spit those out, and Saligo doing in kind with his blasts as well. It's a lot of damage and a lot of poke you can have from quite a range away. Zamudo will take a turret in the bot lane. That is going to be some nice gold there for Wildcard that I think gives them that freedom to look for that poke play.
Yeah, just picking up that first structure, giving them that small gold lead is helpful, but Team Liquid are going to be the ones starting off the Rift Herald already. Wildcard do not have their pieces on the board equipped to try and challenge this one. So Team Liquid, they got to try and find something soon, and I've actually been really impressed at Wildcard's willingness to not fight. They've only really gone for the battle around the Rift Herald, and other than that, feels the Wildcard have done a fantastic job of just saying, yeah, we know that we are going to win this a little bit later on. We don't need to do anything right now. And as Team Liquid start moving together, they need to accelerate this. And I hope that they look for an opportunity to drop the Rift Herald sooner than later.
And props over to Wildcard. There's so many teams that kind of struggle with that, slowing down the game pace and letting it wait out so they can get those crucial item spikes.
Yeah.
As you talked about, Team Liquid Challengers, they cannot allow that freedom, that luxury to Wildcard. It's always about pedal to the metal, continue to move around the map, but this is where Wildcard have nearly answered them on every single play. It's tit for tat. They gain something, we get something back.
Yeah, and stopping the Rift Heralds from taking the entire structure is huge. It's 600 gold that would be picked up by Team Liquid after taking that one down, and not going to be grabbing that at all. Wildcard doing a fantastic job stifling a lot of the things that Team Liquid want to do. And it kind of goes back, right? Because Keel was consistently living up in the top half of the map, Bradley, even though he has a decent laning matchup for the beginning of the game, not able to continue abusing it because he never knew where the jungler actually was. He knew that Mir was on the opposite side of the map. And now I'm starting to turn my attention more towards Arrow, because Arrow is the player who likes to play on the brink, which either, you know, kind of like what we've seen with Onet, either makes him look kind of ridiculous or ridiculously awesome in the way that they go for these fights.
As we get close to these fights, you know they're going to come soon. Wildcard, our team, well-renowned for how well they navigate a lot of these fights, especially after we get past the 20-minute mark. They're getting that gold, as you talked about. They're keeping even. In fact, they're slightly ahead of Team Liquid if you don't count into the Dragons.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, right? If I'm on Wildcard, I'm just like, yeah, I literally don't care. Give them these next 2 dragons if we need to, as long as we're getting a structure every time. Like, absolutely. Chemtech Dragon is one of the hardest dragons to feel in the game, just because it takes most of its effect when you've already lost the fight, right? That's when it is at its strongest. And so Saligo is rapidly approaching the spot where it's super tough for Bradley to deal with him in side lane. Zamudo already looks like he's there, and so there's not going to be members to try and match up against what it is that Wildcard will be trying to do in this game. The only question is, when does Wildcard feel strong enough to start lining up and just saying, hey, we are going to just shoot you from 1,500 units away and dare you to try and come in for a fight?
That's a good question, because right now, I look at Team Liquid Challengers composition as well.
Yeah.
And if Wildcard try to set that up now, you just charge him down. You have the stat front line. You can utilize Bradley for that full effect. Or you can look for a play like this onto Zamudo, doing a lot of damage onto him. Chase down potential. The rallies you talked about from APA, there's no escaping from that one. The fangs have already bit down. The poison is spreading, and Zamudo will feel the burn.
Wow, they really needed to find that kill. They really need to accelerate the game like we've been saying so much. They finally take down Zamudo off on the side, which buys them a little bit more time, but they're not the team that needs to buy time. Again, we said that what Team Liquid love to do, what Spawn has been on record as saying, is they want to put the burden of execution on themselves. So no matter what, they feel as though they are the ones taking control of the game. And right now, Team Liquid, it does not feel like they are in control at all. I think that Wildcard can even choose to give up the Chemtech Soul at the end of it. And while APA does get the money from this, yes, he's scaling. How is he going to be hitting either Jace or Lens, right? This is exactly how Maryville was winning their games previously.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Wildcard, they're happy. They're like, oh, it's a Chemtech Soul? Perfect.
Cool.
Take that. Yeah, that means we get the burger flip over on Elder more likely and a lot sooner. We'll take that.
Yeah. So Wildcard, they haven't been super aggressive with a lot of their plays, and it is worth noting, right, that is tough for them to try and navigate because, as we were talking about before, they don't have engage tools. They don't have tools where you can get on top of APA and Arrow. They are a team that is very reliant on trying to make things happen on the sides of the map. And so, as long as Team Liquid is aggressively trying to push these waves towards Wildcard side, it is Team Liquid that can try and make a lot of these plays happen. That's Team Liquid's comfort zone. Now they're moving here in the mid lane with more members. Look at that.
That sucks for Bradley. Bradley's like, I'm going to get this Demolic Frost. Ha! Never mind.
Never mind. Good talk, everyone. Look at that. There's going to be a wave, or at least half of a wave, that is just disappearing off the map for Team Liquid, as Wildcard will be able to push it.
I'll say it, like, Static Shift meta just feels like it's
I hate it.
For, the thing is, it feels like it's built for Wildcard, though. Stall out the game, clear out the waves so they can get to the team fights. That just feels like it was designed with Wildcard especially in mind.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they are in a position where they can decline to do battle, they're doing great. It is fantastic. And Wildcard was a team that would play really heavy scaling compositions in spring, and their game style hasn't really changed after hitting summer. But APA is here first, as Mudo does not have a push in the side lane.
2 new players on Wildcard. The gameplay is exactly the same as you were talking about from spring to summer. And for Team Liquid Challengers, they're looking for these plays. They're proactive. They're constantly on the map. Like, look at APA right now, slithering into the bot lane to deny Zamudo from that push, because he knows that the Cassiopeia, being level 15 to the 13 of Fiora, can actually go toe-to-toe in that matchup. but you're just denying Wildcard those plays. If you're Team Liquid, that feels rough because you are the ones that want to be proactive.
Yeah. I think any other team would start feeling really nervous here if they were Team Liquid, right? But it is Team Liquid. They are so confident in themselves and their ability to navigate fights, right? You think back to Game 1 of Team Fish Taco versus Team Liquid, where Team Liquid were down, I want to say like 3,000 gold, but they were consistently winning fights because they are playing on the edges of what their opponents are allowed to do. And as long as the team is snowballing the lead against them, it is very tough to actually beat Team Liquid at this fluid movement around the board. Sure. But we're starting to see the poke starting to come in, and Team Liquid don't have an answer yet.
Keep landing those Kaisa W's, and you're going to get chipped out even if you're Bradley. The true damage is going to start hurting pretty bad right now. They even can send out Daisy, free ward, essentially. That frontline tool you were talking about, Josh.
Yeah. Now as they start walking around, Team Liquid ready to set up, and they can't really afford to trade this Dragon for the Baron. I definitely think that Baron would be worth a whole lot more, but they don't have the tools either to get to the Dragon first. It's legal. I mean, that hasn't done a lot of damage yet, but it gets there.
And with APA, Cassiopeia can take down these Barons really quickly.
Zamudo.
They're trying to call the bluff here of Wildcard, trying to force them into a fight because what else are they going to do at this point? Otherwise, they're going to get chipped out at every single stage. But like you said, Zamudo can be an agent of chaos. The blast cone has been taken away. They know there's a possible flank there from Zamudo. And look, they've now spotted him out with the control ward. They know what is happening, and they're corralled into the pit. Only a little bit of poke. Going to be absorbed by ATA. Not too bad at the moment. It's going to be Kim down, though. That's the one you have to worry about, and they have to bail out of the pit. As Donbray now stands in front of them. They could have looked to turn onto the Baron, but it seems like Wildcard, they've denied that attempted play from Team Liquid. Rah. Just got to scare them, but Donbray, that's an awkward position to be in at the moment. Forced to use the Magic Storm, and now losing out on your Rel. Unfortunate positioning error there for the support of Wildcard.
Ooh, but I don't know how important Donbray is as a character to the setups that Wildcard are trying to go for, right? They still have Daisy, they still have Jace, they still have the Kaisa. Zamudo is still off on the sideline, and yes, this Chemtech Soul going down is like, man, I wish we didn't have to give that up, but they're getting 2 turrets in response. They're getting positioning around the Baron buff as well.
Gosh,
and now they can fight for Elder.
We were talking about this. I think Wildcard are more than happy with giving that up. They're like, oh, yeah, that's the best case scenario. We get 2 turrets, we get more gold, and then, like you said, we get a fight for Elder. This is working towards the gameplay, the game book, the playbook. There it is. That's the word I was looking. The playbook of Wildcard. Sorry, I got 3 hours and 3 hours of sleep in 48 hours. Brain is kind of blah.
Is what it is, and now we will see what Team Liquid can do, right? They have the Chemtech Soul. They still have tools to try and start fights, but they need to come in from off angles, and Sligo's starting to hurt, right? He's got the first part of what he needs for the Cerildas. When that is completed, he will start to chunk everybody in the game, and I want to see the Shock Blast. All right, well, it's still a lot.
Let's do a lot. Team Liquid Challengers attempting that front to back, but the poke, as every time they step forward, take an accelerated Shock Blast with the Kaisa W every time. Even Bradley's feeling the pain.
Yeah, I really kind of want to go back to some of the early game plans that Wildcard had in the game, right? Because it started off with Keel going for that invade on the red buff, taking away one of Mir's major tools to try and go for some early ganks, try and snowball the game out of control. And also by turning it into a vertical jungling where Mir was protecting the bottom side of the map but never able to interact with the top side, it really allowed Zamudo to have an uncontested laning phase. And APA?
Petrifying Gaze, that's a lot of damage, and Zamudo, Agent of Chaos right now, he took a lot of beating from APA.
And he's like, cool, yes, you got out my ghost, but I will be back in just a sec, and Wildcard are starting this up.
There's going to be the TP there from APA if they need to. They've got the choo-choo train already delivered with the Magnet Storm as well. They're locked inside of the Dragon and the Baron. They're trying to get it down, but they've lost Spy. Mirror's gone, and it's going to be Wildcard taking the advantage, and Zamudo's on APA, and you don't got the Petrifying Gauge this time around to guide him back, but you do have Arrow. Then Arrow is starting to hurt, shutting down
no
Zamudo.
Flashes on these
flashing
guys.
Forward. Len survives, though. Does not fall. There's no red buff there as they cut down one tree, a couple stand for Wildcard, so they retain the buff.
Wildcard coming out with the Baron buff still. The Turo Baron buff really slowing down a lot of things that Team Liquid want to try and do. And the damage coming through from Saligo at this point is absolutely massive. Team Liquid, they finally get the fight, but they lose out on more gold than they started. We'll take another look at it. As we start looking at this one, Mirror is just a little bit too aggressive in trying to play for this. Arrow not able to get the damage down onto anybody, and I think he's actually, he's doing some damage to Lens, but not able to get the damage through because Mirror is down immediately. And by the time Zamudo joins, they pull the DPS from Team Liquid out of the fight. Both Arrow and APA having to turn to deal with this Fiora, and Bradley, the only one trying to deal with these tanks, he doesn't have any damage of his own.
No, and a big thing too is APA TPing mid lane, not onto a control ward or the ward, to be more with the team in position to follow up on that engage from Bradley. Meant it was a delayed fight afterwards, and so you get 2 kills if you're Team Liquid challengers. But the Baron buff on 3 members of Wildcard, one of them being Soligo, so he can hang out in this side lane, poke you forever, and keep a bunch of Baron power, keep the Turo Baron buff going in every one of these side lanes.
Yeah, I love that spike in the gold graph too, and we can take a look. Zamudo, again, the most fed member of the game, currently with the most gold in the entire map, and he is currently splitting off in the side lane. Bradley will really struggle to deal with him as they start trying to defend this turret, but Team Liquid, the one pushing up against the Turo Baron buff, and it takes them forever to kill these waves.
And look at Zamudo. Chaos over there, taking the base.
Oh, I thought Bradley was Chaos.
I thought he was too. You know what? You're starting to win me over, Josh, because right now Zamudo, he's looking for the back door at the moment. Bradley is denying him that back door at the moment. The inhibitor will still stand for Team Liquid Challengers. But keep in mind, Zamudo died. He doesn't even have the Turo Baron buff. He has a hull breaker instead to make sure he can stay in the side lane.
Yeah, and there's a big for now, right, when you said the inhibitor is still alive, because like Zamudo will come back shortly, and Mir does not win this.
But he is continuing the fight. He's not. Wow, that is a far journey there for Vi.
Yeah, that's definitely a spot where I wonder if Zamudo could have stalled it out for just a moment longer. It is worth noting that Wildcard will not have the tools to just take a front-to-back team fight. If you take these DPS checks, it will usually be going in favor of Team Liquid because of how tanky Bradley is. We're seeing that they're trying to go for a different answer. Will APA be able to split up against Zamudo? And can Bradley get these fights started? I still think the answer is no, because the rest of his team is just going to be chunked out so hard by the Kaisa W's and the J Shock Blast.
Yeah, APA, probably the only member that can go up against Zamudo in the side lane. But
it's still unclear, right?
Right, it's still unclear. And then you're also having your Kaisa, one of your big power points, the one that you need for a lot of these team fights to get a lot of that DPS down, especially as we are getting so close to the Elder Dragon spawning. You need her to be there when that spawns if you're going to try to turn and get that objective. So having her up against a Fiora means you're losing out of a lot of power from your composition of your Team Liquid.
As we start to group up the members of Team Liquid, they have to be ready to play for this Elder Dragon. Even with the Chemtech Soul, which they got 4 dragons straight, I think they got really unlucky in the dragon that they rolled here, but at least Team Liquid can threaten to pick up this mid lane turret, but they have to be ready to fight.
And look at that, they've already started it up. They're on top of it. It's getting burned down too. Again, the gravy train rolling inside of the pit, but no damage has been unleashed just yet. As Dawnbray was able to get on top of Arrow, but nobody could follow that up either, so they're going to turn their attention over to the Rel, and it's going to be Arrow on the rampage, looking for the shock blast. A lot of damage, but Daisy goes flying right on top of Kaisa, losing out on your carry there for Wildcard. Looks like Team Liquid back onto the objective themselves, but Keel is still alive. Still has that smite. They got Saligo on the other side, and his poke does hurt. Accelerate shock blast onto Bradley, but Bradley can absorb that. He'll be fine. TP from Zamudo into the base. It looks like Team Liquid, they're trying to fight inside of the Elder Dragon wall. Potentially, the base could be taken.
Yeah, but Zamudo lost the first 1v1. Round 1 of Zamudo versus APA went in favor of APA. Now Keel running a goose chase around the map. He's the billable on the adventure this time. And Team Liquid, if there's any team that can overcome this crazy composition from Wildcard, it was going to be Team Liquid. But they haven't done it yet. They have the Elder Dragon. They have the tools to end the game. But now they're the ones who have to get fights started. I love the fact that Bradley went so far forward in that fight to make sure the fight started before before his team got chunked out. There was no opportunity for Wildcard to leverage their crazy range advantage. It's something that Team Liquid does better than any other team in the league.
One big thing, too, when we look at this replay, keep your eyes on Arrow and Dawnbray. Dawnbray gets on top of Arrow, looks great. There is no follow-up from Wildcard.
Yeah, and just as you were saying, right, the damage coming out from Wildcard is so focused on trying to do it before the fight actually starts. Once you get into this front-to-back setup, like, look at the damage coming through on Arrow as the Shock Blast lands. You only get that maybe twice per fight, and if they both land an Arrow, you can win it, but Wildcard does not have the damage to try and punch through Bradley if it's front-to-back. Team Liquid finding the kind of fight that they need, and now they're looking to pick up the Turo Baron buff.
Looking for that Baron. Well, Wildcard, they can't venture out. They're so afraid with the Elder Dragon. Still on Team Liquid Challengers. Even look at Zamudo in this side lane. He can't even step up to the tower like you would want to because he can easily lose that 1v1 against APA.
Yeah. Honestly, great stuff coming through from Team Liquid, but they have about a minute left of this Elder Dragon. That is their easiest opportunity to end the game. Team Liquid knows that. I actually think that Team Liquid will full send sometime in the next 50 seconds.
I think you're right. I would not bet against that one because right now they're marching top lane. They got mid lane pushing. APA has CP if need be to get inside of any of these plays. The Wildcard, their hands are being forced, and that's going to be the TP from Bradley to make sure they can at least start cracking the base of Wildcard.
You need to pick up at least 2 inhibitors here for the Turo Baron buff to be worth it, right? They're already pushing in. They get the top lane inhibitor. Do they go for the fight? There it is.
Looking for Lens. He's caught away from the team. Tried to dash away, but the follow-up with the season assist. He can't escape from him, and the Elder Dragon the shield. It's not enough because Arrow just got too much damn damage. As you talked about before, the Aphelios plays, they come online eventually for Arrow, and they're toppling these structures. They're taking game 1 against Wildcard. They're not going to be upset today. They want to remain at the top of the standings after game 1.
Wow. I legitimately do not think another team in the league could have won with this draft going up against Wildcard, right? That is how far ahead Team Liquid really are. The way that they wait, the way that they take no poke before these fights because they full send only when they are in control. They will back up to make sure that there is no opportunity for Wildcard to leverage their advantages. Fantastic stuff coming from Team Liquid. But I also got to say, Wildcard, their game plan was so good for the first 30 minutes of the game. It is just the one time where Team Liquid was able to find the fight that they needed, gets them both the Elder Dragon Baron buff, and the game ends.
I think you're right. I think no other team in Challengers League really has that capability with this kind of draft. It seemed like every other team that would go up against this draft from Wildcard would eventually crumble, but not Team Liquid Challengers. That is why they're number 1. We're going to get ready for a break, but before we do, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Turo. The LCS Challengers League is brought to you by Turo, the world's largest car sharing marketplace where you can book any car you want for just about any occasion. Forget any boring old car rental. Go to Turo.com and get yourself an awesome car.